Alec, Enkiri here. I've gotten several requests from subscribers in recent weeks for me to give you guys an overview of my current training routine. And I realized for all the vlogs and training footage I've posted on my channel, it is just kind of a mishmash a lot of times, and it doesn't really paint the whole picture. So today, I'm going to show you guys exactly how I'm training right now. Every single session and every single exercise. So let's get to it. Now before I jump in, I'm going to warn you that this one is a bit of a whopper. When I started it, I did not intend for it to be quite this long because I feel like long videos are a bit of a turnoff for a lot of people. But I realized shortly after I started writing that if I wanted to do it right, it was going to have to be kind of lengthy. Oh well, I could have split it into two parts, but honestly, fuck two-part videos, so I scrapped that idea. Personally, I wouldn't have clicked on it, so if you did, then more power to you, dude. I hope you stick around for the whole thing because it's quite informative, if I do say so myself. Anyway, let's get started by taking a look at my weekly microcycle. As you can see, I'm training 6 days a week at the moment. 3 lower body training sessions and 3 upper body training sessions, with an additional optional mini session on day 7. Of these 6 to 7 sessions, 4 of them are main sessions. These are where the difficult heavy work on squats, deadlifts, bench presses, dips, chin-ups, etc. takes place. There are 2 main lower body sessions, one with a squat focus and the other with a deadlift focus, and 2 main upper body sessions. The third lower body session is focused on building power and explosiveness. So this is where I do most of my jumping, high pulls, power cleans, stuff like that, along with some conditioning in the form of loaded carries as a finisher. And the third upper body session is mostly focused on accruing some additional volume along with a small power building component. Lastly, the optional mini session is purely focused on explosive work. 1 exercise for the lower body and 1 for the upper body, and it should last no more than 30 minutes. Now that you guys have an idea of the general layout of things, let's take a closer look at the actual work I do during each individual session, as well as my reasoning for including each exercise and the goals I'm hoping to achieve with them. This session takes place on Sunday and is my first training session of the week. It's very basic and consists of only 3 exercises: the squat, trap bar deadlift, and hyperextension. My squat work here consists of 5 sets of 3 reps with the option of going up to 5 reps on the final set if I want to push things a little bit harder. This is my competition style squat, and the goal right now is to simply build my baseline strength and technical proficiency here. I have no plans to compete anytime soon, and as I've aged, I've learned the hard way that as a guy who isn't blasting gear, you have to be smarter with your training. If you go ultra heavy all the time, eventually you have to pay the piper, and pay the fucking piper I did. This was a big turning point for me, as my favorite method of squat training for several years was daily heavy squatting. I got very strong this way, but my hips could only stand it for so long before they rebelled. And that forced me to take a long, hard look at how I was doing things and really kind of overhaul my entire personal training methodology. So my focus these days is just to increase my everyday strength and keep building out the base, wider and wider, mostly with weights in the 80 to 85% range. Just keep accruing high quality, technically proficient volume and slowly but surely progressing the intensity level. Really, this is strength training in its most basic form. It's not destroying my joints and it's still making me stronger. And then when the time for competition once again arises, that's when you shift gears. Jack up the frequency and the intensity, work in some maximal singles, doubles, and triples, peak your strength, crush the competition, and then afterward, put your head back down, put your ego on hold once again, and get back to the real work. It's not sexy, and no one watches my Instagram videos, but it's gonna let me reach my goals one day, and that's the most important thing for me. After squats, I'm hammering trap bar deadlifts right now. I love conventional deadlifts, but I wanted to give my lower back a little bit of a break from it for a few months, and I figured the trap bar would be a great way to work the deadlift pattern while also giving my quads a little bit of extra volume as well. Plus, the additional quad stimulus that the trap bar provides should make it a great accessory for the sumo deadlift, which is generally my stronger stance, so that's another benefit. I'm working these in the 6 to 8 rep range right now for 3 to 4 sets. I started with a weight that I could easily do for 10 or more reps, and I've been increasing it 10 pounds every session, which is a pretty aggressive progression, but I wanted to work this up to a few tough, heavy sets of 5 over the next few weeks. and then I'll probably switch back to a conventional deadlift variation, probably deficit deadlifts because that's my fave. This session is rounded out with some heavy hyperextensions, mostly 3 sets in the 8 to 12 rep range, but I'm slowly increasing the weight on this exercise as well. I just recently made a video about how awesome heavy hypers are in general, so if you haven't watched it yet, you should check it out. But these provide me with some easily recoverable, high quality work for my glutes, hamstrings, and lower back, and are going to be vital for my success on the road to a 600-pound deadlift. This is my heavier bench press session and currently consists of 3 exercises. The bench press, obviously, followed by the weighted dip and the weighted chin-up. Right now, all of my bench press training is purely single repetitions, and I'm hoping to maintain this style of training for quite some time and still make progress. My reasoning for doing this is that my technical proficiency on the bench press suffers dramatically when performing triples or even doubles with heavy weights. Not only does this ultimately limit how much weight I can use, but it also ingrains terrible motor patterns, and it's taken me a lot of focused effort on these singles to start to undo those bad habits. But I'm currently making great strides. This is my heavier bench press session of the week, so I'm only doing 10 to 15 total singles on the bench here. I start out with a given weight and do 10 singles with it. Then the following week, I keep the weight the same and do 15 singles with it. And then on the third week, I increase the weight by 2.5 pounds and go back to doing 10 singles with it, and then 15 the following week, and repeat ad nauseum. This micro progression is working very well so far. In the future, I'll keep the weight constant for 3 weeks if necessary before increasing the load. Also, between every few singles on the bench, I throw in a set of band pull-aparts for 15 to 20 reps for the sake of keeping the shoulder girdle in balance. I don't go too crazy or my upper back gets too tired to hold the arch, but I do get a good pump going. I usually aim for 100 total reps throughout the course of the workout. After benching, I move on to 2 of my favorite upper body exercises, weighted dips and chins. I perform these exercises in an alternating fashion, and for this session, I ramp up the load with each set until I reach a heavy top set for the day on both exercises, which usually takes about 5 to 6 series to get to. I describe this method in more detail in a video I recently published titled How to Get Brutally Strong with Weighted Dips and Chin-Ups. After I get to my top sets, I decrease the load on both exercises by about 30 to 40 pounds or so and do 2 to 3 back-off sets in the 6 to 8 rep range. And that wraps up the session with a solid pump. These exercises are a good way for me to increase my workload for the upper body since my bench press work is comprised of nothing but singles, as well as increase my general upper body strength in ways that are different from the bench press. And the dips also make a great accessory movement for the pecs and triceps, and for me, they usually provide a good boost in bench press strength as well. This session starts off with some jump work. Right now I'm doing mostly box jumps, either from a standstill or with a one-step lead-in. But I've also dabbled with hurdle hops, plain old vertical jumps where I try to touch an object as high as possible, broad jumps, bounding, and even depth jumping. Volume here is usually many sets of 3 to 5 jumps, generally encompassing anywhere from 30 to 50 total jumps. But the rule is that once your performance has peaked for the day, you stop the exercise as soon as performance begins to decline, even if that means you only do 15 or 20 total jumps that day. After jumping, I move on to an Olympic lift variation. In the past, I've done clean and jerks, full snatches, power snatches, jerks, and power cleans. But these days, I usually just stick with power cleans and high pulls. Right now, I'm focusing on high pulls with a snatch grip and ramping up to a heavy triple, then doing back-off work by either removing 30 to 50 pounds from the top set and doing another 3 to 5 triples at that weight, or by simply pyramiding back down in 20-pound increments. After my Olympic lift variation, I'm done with my power work for the day, so I finish up the session with a loaded carry variation. I've been doing a lot of farmer's walks these last few months using moderate weights and focusing on increasing the density of work by setting a timer for 15 minutes and just doing as many 20-yard carries as I can with a given weight in that time frame. These last couple weeks, however, I've switched things up and did some heavy Zercher carries inside my garage instead. Since the distance is so short here, I focus more on working up to a heavy weight and less on getting a good conditioning effect. I also do these from the front rack position and the back squat position as well. The goal with this session is threefold. 1, all 3 exercises enhance my athleticism and keep me well-rounded and ensure I can do other things besides just squat and deadlift heavy weights. 2, the jumps and Olympic lift variations increase the power and explosiveness in my legs, hips, and back, which complements all my squat and deadlift training. And 3, the loaded carries provide a massive conditioning effect, which increases the total number of calories I burn in a week, helping to keep me lean and mean and in great shape, while also providing a good workout for my cardiovascular system. This session is meant to be quick and relatively easy, just a way to get in some additional moderate weight volume. It should take no longer than 30 minutes. I start the workout off with 5 sets of 5 reps on plyo push-ups, landing onto an elevated surface to minimize wrist stress. I've just started doing these, but I find them to be a good primer for the upper body, and I'm hoping they'll eventually have some carryover to my ability to produce power during the bench press. These sets take just a few minutes, and then I move on to the main work for the day, which is dips paired with face pulls. The dips are a 5x5 volume session, as I described in my recent video on how to program weighted dips and chin-ups. And the face pulls are usually just 3 to 5 sets of 10 to 15 reps. Sometimes I do straight sets here, and sometimes I ramp up as I go, whatever strikes my fancy that day. We're up to Thursday now, and Thursday is deadlift day. Similar to Sunday's session, this session is pretty basic, not to be confused with easy, and consists of only 3 exercises. My primary deadlift variation, which right now is the sumo deadlift, my secondary squat variation, which right now is the high bar back squat, and then some heavy hyperextensions to round things out. The deadlift work at the moment is 4 sets of 5 reps with an optional rep out on the final set, not to exceed 10 reps. The goal with these deadlifts is the same as on the primary squat day. I'm just putting in progressively heavier doses of a moderate amount of volume and increasing my baseline everyday strength. When the body is at enough of being pounded into the ground with volume, I'll deload and move into a more intense block of deadlifting training, because my absolute main goal right now is to deadlift 600 pounds. And that's going to require some heavier work after a little while. After deadlifts, I move on to my secondary squat variation. I've only recently started squatting 2 times a week again. I had been doing just once a week for a good while, but I was starting to stagnate a bit on that, so I needed to make a change. I've been doing 4 sets of 3 reps of high bar squats in this slot to target the quads better and allow me to use less weight as well as a narrower stance in order to spare my hips some. But I found that the knee break style here is starting to affect the motor pattern of my mid-bar squat, which is more of a simultaneous hip and knee break. So I may need to alter this high bar squat to be more similar to my mid-bar squat, at least in terms of hip versus knee utilization. However, I'll still keep the weight a little bit lower here and use a narrower stance to keep hip stress to a minimum. After these squats, I finish up the session with a few sets of heavy hypers. Same as on the other lower body day, usually 3 sets in the 8 to 12 rep range, but starting to dabble more with some even heavier weights as well. This is my volume bench press session. As I mentioned earlier, all the reps are still done as singles, but the difference with this session is that the density of work is greatly increased. I do these reps EMOM style, and my aim is to complete 25 singles in 25 minutes, give or take a minute or 2, because I'm OCD, and sometimes it takes me a little longer than it should to get set up for a lift. I've been progressing here by adding 2.5 pounds to it every week, and just recently finished up a solid and pretty easy session with 225 pounds. At some point, I'll slow the progression to 2.5 pounds every other week, because I want to maintain at least a 15-pound difference between this session and my heavier session earlier in the week. Again, this method allows me to get in a good volume of crisp, powerful, and technically perfect lifts, and the results are already starting to show. After bench pressing, I move on to another lift that I've only recently re-implemented into my program after a several-year hiatus, the strict overhead press. I'm training this lift in the same fashion as the bench press, just knocking out a bunch of EMOM singles, usually 10 to 15 of them, and increasing the weight by 2.5 pounds every second or third week. It's important to progress very slowly on this lift, because of all the major compound lifts, this is the one that is going to hit the wall the soonest. I think having a strong press is somewhat beneficial for my bench press strength, personally, but the impact is not huge. I'm including this lift again because I want to have big, strong shoulders. I want to have shoulders that move heavy things through a full range of motion and have good pain-free mobility. And most of all, I just want to strict press 225 pounds over my fucking head. Before and after my giant EMOM sets on both these exercises, I've been doing a few sets of moderately heavy pull-ups as well as pull-aparts with a band. My goal is just to get in 3 to 4 sets of 4 to 6 reps on the pull-ups, weighted obviously, and spread throughout the course of the workout. This time using a pronated grip instead of supinated, and maybe 50 total reps on the band pull-aparts. Lastly, I finish up the day with a little bit of direct arm work. I'm doing strict curls with my back braced against the wall, mostly because I want stronger biceps, and I want to be able to strict curl my own body weight. If this also boosts my main lifts, that's just gravy for me. And I'm pairing these with lying tricep extensions, which I am hopeful will have an effect on my benching and overhead pressing strength. This is another mini session that should take no more than half an hour to complete. It's comprised solely of standing box jumps and plyo push-ups and no weights at all. I just get out and do 6 to 8 sets of 5 reps, going back and forth between both exercises, and call it a day. This leaves me feeling refreshed and limber, helps increase explosiveness, and probably helps with recovery from all the strength work as well, since it gets the blood flowing and causes minimal joint stress because the elevated surfaces diminish ground contact forces. However, I don't force myself to do this. If I'm too busy that day or something better comes up, I don't stress about missing it. Now you guys have my entire training routine all laid out in full for the world to see. My only advice to you is don't copy it. You can learn from it, you can utilize tidbits from it and borrow some of the methods, but you shouldn't simply mimic it. I designed it for me. I designed it to allow me to reach my goals, and I based it off of the knowledge and experience that I've accrued training my own body for the last 10 years. That includes the strength, muscle, power, and work capacity I've gained, along with the injuries I've acquired along the way. The effect this training program has on me will not be the effect it has on anybody else. So you've officially been warned. Now, having said all that, if you are interested in a customized training program of your own, I do offer that as part of my online coaching services. So just shoot me an email if you're interested, and I can write you a program that's based around you and will work for you. And that's all I got for now, guys. Please be sure to like the video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoy the content I produce, please share some of your favorite stuff somewhere, and let's make this channel grow together. Keep training hard, and I'll catch you guys next time.